The harsh fluorescent lights of the Chicago hospital room buzzed overhead, casting a sterile white glow across the tile floor. I sat on the hard plastic chair beside the empty hospital bed, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles turned completely white. My name is Caleb Miller. For the past 12 hours, I had been waiting for the woman I loved to show up for the birth of our child. The door swung open and Dr. Evelyn Carter walked in, her blue scrubs rustling as she stepped toward me with a grave expression. She pulled down her surgical mask, her sharp green eyes filled with deep professional sympathy. "Caleb, how are you holding up?" Dr. Carter asked softly, checking the monitor beside the bed. "Any word from Sierra yet?" "Nothing, doctor," I said, my voice cracking as I stared at the dark screen of my phone. "I've called her 7 times in the last hour. It goes straight to voicemail every single time." Dr. Carter sighed, crossing her arms over her chest. "Mr. Miller, I need to be completely honest with you. Sierra's water broke 4 hours early, and her contractions are coming fast and hard. If she isn't here within the next 20 minutes, the baby's heart rate drop means we have to move straight to an emergency C-section. Can we wait just a little longer?" I pleaded, standing up from the chair. She was at a weekend birthday getaway in Aspen with some old friends. Her flight must have been delayed. "Caleb, listen to me," Dr. Carter said firmly, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "This isn't about flight delays anymore." Nurse Jessica checked social media updates posted by her friends 15 minutes ago. Sierra is currently at a VIP pool party at a resort in Aspen. She isn't on a plane. A cold wave of shock washed over me. A pool party? While she's in active labor? "I'm sorry," Dr. Carter said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Her ex-boyfriend, Brandon Vance, posted a video a few minutes ago. Sierra is standing right beside him holding a glass of champagne. Her phone isn't dead, Caleb. She turned it off. The room seemed to spin. All the love, patience, and devotion I had poured into our 4-year relationship shattered into a million pieces right then and there. "She knew," I whispered, the bitter truth burning my throat. "She knew our baby was coming early, and she chose a party with her ex-boyfriend instead." "We can't wait for her choice anymore," Dr. Carter said urgently, her professional focus snapping back into place. "The baby is in distress. I need your consent right now to prep for an immediate C-section. You'll be scrubbing in alone." "Do it," I said, my voice hardening as a strange, cold clarity replaced my panic. "Save my son." 10 minutes later, I stood inside the sterile operating room, dressed in sterile scrubs and a hair net, holding my breath as the bright surgical lights glared down. Dr. Carter worked with swift, practiced precision behind the blue surgical drape. "Caleb, I need you to stay right here by my voice," Dr. Carter instructed calmly, her eyes focused on the incision. "Breathe with me. He's almost here." "I'm here," I choked out, tears blurring my vision behind my protective goggles. "I'm right here, buddy." Suddenly, a sharp, piercing cry echoed through the operating room. Nurse Jessica smiled broadly, wiping a tear from her cheek as she scooped the tiny, squirming infant into a warm blue blanket. "Congratulations, Dad. You have a healthy baby boy. Can I hold him?" I asked, my hands shaking uncontrollably. "Come right over here," Nurse Jessica said, guiding my arms. The moment the tiny infant was placed against my chest, his little fists curled into the fabric of my scrubs, and he let out another soft whimper. I looked down at his tiny, perfect face, tracing his button nose and dark tuft of hair. A fierce, unbreakable wave of love surged from the deepest depths of my soul. "Hey there, Leo," I whispered, pressing my lips gently against his forehead as fresh tears streamed down my cheeks. "I've got you. Daddy's right here." Dr. Carter stepped away from the surgical table, washing her hands at the sink while watching us with a gentle smile. "He's a strong little guy, Caleb. You did good." "Thank you, doctor," I said, not taking my eyes off my newborn son. "Thank you for keeping him safe." "Where do you think Sierra is right now?" Nurse Jessica asked quietly, her expression turning sorrowful as she handed me a sterile pacifier. I looked down at the tiny baby resting against my heart, safe from the careless cruelty of the world outside these walls. The grief of betrayal was still there, but it was now overshadowed by an absolute, unshakable resolve. "It doesn't matter where she is," I answered, my voice steady and firm in the quiet room. "Sierra made her choice tonight. She chose her past over her own child's birth." "What are you going to do?" Nurse Jessica asked softly. "She gave up her right to be a mother when she turned off her phone," I said, looking down at my son with fierce determination. "I brought him into this world alone and I will raise him alone. Sierra is about to walk back into an empty apartment, because I am taking my son and starting our new life without her. The sharp click of the locksmith's drill echoed down the high-rise hallway of our downtown Chicago apartment building. I stood by the elevator holding baby Leo close against my chest in his padded car seat. My older sister, Hannah, paced beside me, her sleek legal blazer tossed over one arm while her sharp brown eyes stayed locked on the locksmith. "Is he almost done, Caleb?" Hannah asked, checking her silver wristwatch. "The temporary custody papers are already printed in my briefcase. I want those locks changed before her flight from Aspen lands." "He's putting the new deadbolt in now," I replied, my voice raspy from lack of sleep. "Thanks for driving us home from the hospital, Hannah." "You don't need to thank me," Hannah said fiercely, stepping closer and gently touching Leo's soft blue blanket. "When you called me from the delivery room saying Sierra abandoned you for Brandon Vance's party, I nearly caught the next flight to Colorado to drag her back by her hair." "She made her choice," I said, looking down at my sleeping son. "I'm just making mine." The locksmith pulled his drill back, holding up 2 fresh silver keys. "All set, Mr. Miller. Old lock is out, new high-security deadbolt is engaged. Nobody opens this door without these keys." "Hand them to me," Hannah said, taking the keys and immediately sliding one into my palm. "Now, let's get Leo inside his nursery and clear her clutter out of your life." We stepped inside the quiet, sunlit apartment. Sierra's expensive designer shoes were scattered near the entryway, and her perfume still lingered in the air. The sight brought a sudden wave of bitterness to my chest, but I pushed it down, carrying Leo straight into the painted nursery I had built with my own hands. Hannah set 3 large cardboard boxes on the living room rug. I hired a professional moving crew. They'll be here in 2 hours to haul all her clothes, shoes and vanity items into a climate-controlled storage unit down on 4th Street. "Are you sure this is completely legal, Hannah?" I asked, setting Leo's bassinet near the crib. "She's going to claim I locked her out illegally." "I'm a licensed family attorney, Caleb," Hannah said, pulling out a white folder from her bag. "You sole fund this lease under your name alone." She never signed the lease agreement. "More importantly, I'm filing an emergency ex parte petition for full temporary custody based on maternal abandonment at birth." "She abandoned him," I agreed firmly, walking over to Sierra's master closet. "She turned off her phone during active labor." "Exactly," Hannah nodded, opening a box. "Start packing her wardrobe. Leave nothing that belongs to her in this apartment." I pulled open Sierra's top dresser drawer, grabbing armfuls of her silk scarves and sweaters. As I emptied the back corner of the bottom drawer, my hand knocked against a heavy velvet jewelry box. Hidden beneath it lay a stack of folded, unmailed letters written on thick stationery. I unfolded the top letter, recognizing Sierra's neat handwriting immediately. "What's that?" Hannah asked, stepping into the bedroom doorframe with a stack of shoe boxes. My eyes scanned the lines, my heart turning to absolute ice. "It's a letter to Brandon. Dated 3 weeks ago." "What does it say?" Hannah demanded, setting the boxes down instantly. "Dear Brandon," I read aloud, my voice flat and lifeless. "I know Caleb thinks this baby will keep us together, but I'm only staying until the delivery is over. Once the hospital bills are settled, I'm bringing the baby to your estate in Aspen like we discussed." Hannah gasped, snatching the paper from my hand to read it herself. "She was planning to take your newborn son to her ex-boyfriend's house after using you for hospital coverage?" "Look at the second letter," I said, unfolding another sheet with trembling fingers. "Brandon, don't worry about Caleb. He's too soft to fight back. He'll sign whatever custody agreement I put in front of him because he loves me too much." A dark, quiet laugh escaped my throat. All the remaining traces of heartbreak and regret vanished instantly, replaced by an iron wall of pure resolve. "Soft." Hannah spat, her face flushing with anger. "She really thought you were that foolish?" "I was foolish," I said, folding the letters carefully and handing them to my sister. "I trusted her for 4 years. I thought she was just confused about her past, but she was calculating every step." "These letters are gold for our custody hearing," Hannah said, slipping them into her legal folder and zipping it shut. "The judge will see these as evidence of premeditated parental alienation and financial exploitation." "I don't care about her money or her excuse anymore," I said, grabbing Sierra's designer dresses off their hangers and tossing them violently into the cardboard box. "She took my love for weakness, Hannah. She thought I would sit here like a helpless fool while she played games with Brandon." "The movers are downstairs," Hannah said, checking her phone as the intercom buzzed. "Let's clear this place out." Within an hour, Every dress, shoe, bottle of perfume and photograph containing Sierra Hayes was loaded into the back of a moving truck. The apartment was stripped clean, leaving only Leo's baby furniture, my clothes, and an overwhelming, peaceful silence. I walked into the nursery, leaning over the wooden crib where Leo lay sleeping peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling softly. I touched his soft cheek with my thumb. "No one is ever taking you away from me, Leo," I whispered, looking toward the heavy oak front door with its brand new deadbolt. "Your mother thought I was soft. She's about to find out how wrong she was." The sudden, violent rattling of the front brass door handle broke the afternoon quiet of the apartment. I stood up from the sofa immediately, adjusting the soft straps of the fabric chest carrier holding 3-day-old Leo snug against my chest. Outside in the carpeted hallway, metal scraped against metal as Sierra attempted to force her old key into the newly installed high-security deadbolt. "What is wrong with this stupid key?" Sierra's annoyed voice drifted clearly through the thick wooden door. "Caleb must have broken the lock from the inside." "Just knock, Sierra," a sharp, arrogant male voice replied. "Brandon Vance. He's probably inside holding your hand-drawn baby nursery plans, waiting to cry on your shoulder." I took a deep, steadying breath, placing a reassuring hand over Leo's back, and unlatched the heavy deadbolt. I pulled the door open 6 inches, keeping my body blocking the frame completely. Sierra stood in the hallway wearing dark designer sunglasses, an oversized cashmere sweater, and a soft leather handbag. Behind her, Brandon Vance stood tall in a tailored gray blazer, leaning casually against 2 pieces of hardshell designer luggage. "Finally," Sierra snapped, pushing her sunglasses up onto her head, her hazel eyes flashing with annoyance. "Caleb, why did you change the lock? My key isn't working and I've been stuck in Aspen for 3 days because the weather was." She froze mid-sentence as her gaze dropped to the sleeping baby strapped tightly across my chest. "Caleb," she gasped, her face draining of all color in an instant. Is that him? Did I miss it?" "You missed it 3 days ago, Sierra," I said, my voice dead flat and completely unreadable. "Oh my God." Sierra shrieked, taking an eager step forward with her arms outstretched. "Give him to me. Let me hold my son. Why didn't you call me continuous times? Why didn't you wait for me?" "Stop right there," I commanded, raising my right hand to block her path. "Do not step across this threshold." "What are you talking about?" Sierra demanded, her voice rising into an anxious squeak. "Caleb, move out of the way. That's my baby. I'm his mother." "You stopped being a mother the moment you turned your phone off to drink champagne at Brandon's pool party in Aspen," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "Dr. Carter had to perform an emergency C-section while your phone went straight to voicemail." "It was an accident," Sierra screamed, tears beginning to smudge her makeup. "Brandon's chalet had terrible cell service. I didn't know the baby was coming early. You know my phone battery dies fast." "Cut the pathetic act, Sierra," I interrupted, my voice sharp as a razor. "We saw the social media videos Brandon posted. You were holding a drink, smiling at the camera while our son was struggling to breathe in an operating room." Brandon stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he placed a large hand heavily on Sierra's shoulder. "Listen here, Miller. You need to watch your mouth. Sierra was under a lot of stress with this pregnancy, and she needed a weekend off. You don't get to speak to her like that. You need to step back, Brandon, before I throw you down these stairs," I said, staring at him without a single flicker of fear. "You played your little game, helping her write letters behind my back, thinking I was too weak to react." Brandon's smug expression instantly melted into genuine shock. "What letters?" "The ones Sierra hid in her dresser," I answered coldly. "The ones where she promised to bring my baby to your estate after using my insurance to pay the hospital bills." Sierra gasped, clutching her chest as her jaw dropped open. "Caleb, you searched my personal things?" "I packed your personal things," I corrected her, gesturing to the bare hallway behind me. "Every single item you left in this apartment is sitting in a locked storage unit down on 4th Street. Your name is off the building guest registry. You locked me out of my own home?" Sierra wailed, dropping to her knees on the hallway carpet, her hands clutching at my jeans. "Caleb, please. I was foolish. I made a mistake. Let me see Leo. Please, just let me hold my baby boy." "He is not your prop, Sierra," I said, leaning down slightly so she could hear every word clearly. "You forfeited your right to be in this family when you walked out that door to be with Brandon. You can't do this legally, man." Brandon shouted, grabbing Sierra's arm to pull her up while pointing a finger in my face. "She has maternal rights. We'll have a team of corporate lawyers strip that baby from your arms by tomorrow morning. Try it, I said smoothly. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out a folded white legal document, and slapped it firmly against Brandon's chest. What is this trash? Brandon spat, unfolding the paper with shaking hands. That is an emergency ex parte temporary sole custody order signed by a Cook County judge 2 hours ago, I explained, looking past him at Sierra's pale, tear-streaked face. Along with a temporary restraining order prohibiting both of you from coming within 500 feet of me, my son, or this apartment building. Caleb, no. Sierra screamed, hitting her fists against the wooden doorframe as I began backing into the foyer. Don't do this to me. I love you. I love our baby. You love yourself, Sierra, I said, holding her gaze for one last lingering second. And you love Brandon's money. Go enjoy both of them. Caleb, open this door. Brandon yelled, pounding his fist against the heavy oak wood. You're going to pay for this. If you hit that door one more time, Brandon, the building security guard standing at the end of the hall will arrest you for trespass, I called out through the panel. The pounding stopped abruptly. I turned the brass deadbolt, hearing the heavy mechanism click securely into place. Leo stirred softly against my chest, opening his small blue eyes and letting out a tiny yawn. I looked down at him, resting my chin against his forehead as Sierra's muffled wails slowly faded down the hallway. The battle was far from over, but as I walked back into our quiet, peaceful home, I knew I had already won the most important part. The harsh blue glow of my phone screen illuminated the darkened living room as I cradled Leo in my arm, rocking him gently. Have you seen what she posted today, Caleb? Hannah's voice demanded over the speakerphone, sharp with indignation. I'm looking at it right now, I said, my jaw tightening as I scrolled through the video streaming online. Sierra sat in front of a camera in a plush hotel suite, her eyes dabbed with theatrical tears. My sweet baby boy was stolen from me, she sobbed to her 500,000 followers. While I was stranded out of state undergoing a terrible medical emergency, my ex-boyfriend locked me out, changed the security codes, and kidnapped our newborn son. She's claiming she was hospitalized in Aspen, Hannah said, her papers rustling on her end of the line. Her followers are leaving death threats on your firm's public page, Caleb. We need to shut this down before our emergency custody hearing tomorrow morning. She thinks a viral video can rewrite the truth, I said softly, watching Leo drift off to sleep. How are we handling the judge? Dr. Evelyn Carter just sent over the certified medical files, Hannah replied, her tone turning deeply satisfying. And it is far more damning than Sierra realizes. The front door chime sounded and I walked over to let Hannah in. She stepped inside carrying her leather briefcase, pulling out a thick set of printed hospital logs along with stamped travel records. Look at these timestamps, Hannah said, laying the papers out on my kitchen island. Dr. Carter documented every single hour. At 2:15 p.m., when Sierra claimed she was rushed to an urgent care clinic in Colorado, the resort's public geotags put her at Brandon's cabana pool party. Does Dr. Carter have the phone logs? I asked, looking down at the official documents. Right here, Hannah pointed with her pen. The hospital automated system sent 4 separate emergency maternity alerts to Sierra's primary phone number starting at noon. She opened the text notifications at 12:05 p.m., and immediately switched her cellular band off 2 minutes later. She didn't suffer a medical emergency, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. She deliberately muted an emergency delivery to stay at a party. Tomorrow at the preliminary custody motion, I am releasing these records directly into the public court record, Hannah declared, her eyes flashing with professional steel. Sierra built her entire online lifestyle brand on being a wholesome, relatable mother-to-be. Let's see how her sponsors react when the sworn medical affidavits go public. The next afternoon, the court hearing was swift and devastating. Standing in the hallway outside the courtroom, Sierra approached us alongside Brandon, her chin held high in arrogant expectation. It's not too late to settle this quietly, Caleb, Sierra spat, leaning toward me while Brandon stood by with his hands tucked into his tailored pants pockets. Drop the restraining order, let me bring Leo home and I'll delete the video. Otherwise, my followers will ruin your reputation. You should really check your phone, Sierra, Hannah said smoothly, holding up her tablet. The judge just accepted Dr. Carter's certified medical logs into the public docket. The press desk downstairs already has the copies. Sierra blinked, her smug expression faltering. What copies? The ones proving you were drinking champagne in Aspen while your son was in respiratory distress, I said, looking her dead in the eye. You lied to the court, you lied to the public, and you lied to your followers. Sierra frantically pulled her smartphone out of her designer bag. Her eyes widened in absolute horror as thousands of comments began flooding her live feed. You abandoned your baby for a party? One top comment read. Monster. We saw the hospital logs. Read another. No, no, no. Sierra gasped, her hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped the device. This is a misunderstanding. Brandon, tell them. Tell them I was sick. Brandon stepped back from her instantly, crossing his arms and looking away toward the courthouse windows. Don't drag me into this, Sierra. I had no idea your phone received emergency labor alerts. What? Sierra shrieked, staring at Brandon in total shock. You were sitting right next to me when I swiped the notification away. You told me Caleb was just being dramatic. I told you no such thing, Brandon said coldly, his voice laced with pure self-preservation. My company's board of directors is already calling me about this nightmare publicity. I suggest you handle your own legal problems, Sierra. Brandon, wait. Sierra cried as her wealthy ex-boyfriend turned his back on her and strode quickly toward the elevator banks, completely abandoning her on the marble floor. He's leaving you, Sierra, I said quietly, watching her crumble onto a wooden bench near the courtroom doors. Just like you left our son. Caleb? Please, Sierra sobbed, holding her phone as notification after notification popped up on the screen. My management agency just emailed me, they dropped my contract. My sponsors are pulling their endorsements. I have nothing left. You had a family, I said, looking down at her without a single trace of anger left in my heart. You had a loyal partner and you had a baby who needed you. You traded all of it for Brandon's status and a few hours of fake luxury. I ruined everything, she wept, burying her face in her hands. Yes, you did, I agreed firmly, turning away from her desperate sobs. Come on, Hannah. Let's go home to my son. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, leaving Sierra sitting completely alone in the echoing hallway, trapped in the inescapable wreckage of her own choices. 6 months of quiet routine had passed since I left the Cook County Courthouse. My new suburban house outside Chicago sat on a quiet street, surrounded by green lawns and the gentle rustle of oak trees. I stood on my wooden front porch in the soft afternoon light, cradling 6-month-old Leo in my arms. He was bouncing happily, making bright babbling sounds while grabbing at the fabric of my cotton shirt. A sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb, its door opening to reveal a tall man in a tailored dark gray suit. It wasn't Brandon. It was his older brother, Derek Vance, the primary managing partner of Vance Capital. Derek walked up my paved driveway with a measured, professional posture, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. Caleb Miller? Derek asked, his deep voice polite and surprisingly humble. I am, I replied, shifting Leo slightly on my hip. If you're here on Brandon's behalf, you're wasting your time, Mr. Vance. I'm not here on Brandon's behalf, Derek said, taking a quiet breath and looking up at me with clear respect. I'm here to personally apologize for my brother's disgraceful actions 6 months ago. Apologize? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Brandon's reckless behavior in Aspen and his involvement in your child's abandonment created a massive corporate nightmare, Derek explained flatly. 3 major institutional pension funds pulled their investment portfolios from our firm last week. They refused to do business with an executive who enabled such public cruelty. I saw the financial headlines, I noted quietly. Vance Capital lost 30% of its assets. Because of Brandon's hubris, Derek said, his jaw tightening. As of 8 o'clock this morning, the board of directors voted unanimously to strip Brandon of his corporate shares and fire him from the firm. He is completely out of Vance Capital. He built his entire identity on that company, I said, feeling no pity, only a quiet sense of justice. And now he has nothing, Derek confirmed, extending a hand toward me. I wanted to look you in the eye and say that Vance Capital does not condone what happened to you and your son. I wish you the best, Caleb. Thank you, Derek, I said, shaking his hand firmly. I appreciate you telling me yourself. Derek nodded once, turned on his heel and drove away. As his car disappeared down the tree-lined street, another figure approached from the opposite corner. It was a woman walking slowly, her head down, wearing a worn denim coat over a plain cotton dress. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she carried a battered leather purse. Sierra. She stopped at the foot of my porch steps, looking up at me with pale skin and hollow dark circles beneath her hazel eyes. Her glamorous lifestyle was completely gone. Caleb. Sierra choked out, her voice raspy and broken. "What are you doing here, Sierra?" I asked calmly, keeping my voice soft so as not to startle Leo. "I didn't know where else to go," she wept, dropping her heavy purse onto the grass. "My apartment landlord evicted me last week. The social media agencies blacklisted me and Brandon changed his gate codes. He won't even answer my calls." "Karma has a way of fixing balance, Sierra," I said, watching her tear-streaked face without a single trace of anger. "I lost everything, Caleb." Sierra screamed softly, sinking onto her knees on the wooden steps, her shoulders shaking violently. "My money, my career, my friends. Brandon threw me away the second things got hard. I was so stupid. I was so foolish to trade you for him." "You didn't just trade me, Sierra," I reminded her firmly. "You traded your son." Sierra looked up at Leo, her eyes wide with desperate, heartbroken longing. Leo stared back at her with innocent curiosity, not recognizing the crying woman kneeling on the wood. "Look at him," Sierra whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "He's so big, he has your dark hair, Caleb. Please, I am begging you on my knees. Let me come home. Let me be a mother to our baby. Let me be your wife again. I will do anything you ask." "There is no home for you here, Sierra," I said, my voice as solid as granite. "The man who loved you unconditionally is gone. You broke that trust beyond repair." "Please, Caleb," she sobbed, reaching out a trembling hand toward Leo, though she didn't dare touch him. "Don't be so cold. I know I made a horrible mistake, but people deserve second chances." "Some mistakes carry permanent costs," I told her, leaning down slightly so she could hear every word with total clarity. "You chose a weekend party over your son's birth. You can't just erase that because your luxury life fell apart." "Are you going to leave me with nothing?" she whimpered, lowering her head to the step. "No," I answered, taking a breath. "Hannah and I discussed this yesterday. I will not keep Leo from knowing who gave birth to him. I am willing to grant you court-monitored, supervised visitation for 2 hours every second Saturday." Sierra blinked up at me through her tears, completely stunned. "Supervised visitation?" "Under professional supervision at a family center," I clarified. "If you stay sober, stay consistent, and show genuine effort, we can talk about expanding those hours in the future. That is the only place you have in Leo's life. Caleb, please let me just hold him once," she pleaded softly. "Not today, Sierra," I said, stepping back toward the open front door. "Contact Hannah's legal office tomorrow morning to sign the visitation schedule. Goodbye." "Caleb," she called out, her voice echoing across the quiet yard as I stepped inside. I closed the heavy front door, turning the brass deadbolt securely into place. Leo rested his small head against my shoulder, letting out a soft sigh as I held him tight. The past was finally buried and my son's future was safe. The heavy oak gavel slammed down against the judge's bench, the sharp crack echoing through the high ceilings of the Cook County family courtroom. In light of the documented evidence of maternal abandonment during birth, Judge Alvarez announced, her voice authoritative and clear, "This court grants Mr. Caleb Miller sole physical custody and full legal guardianship of the minor child, Leo Miller. Ms. Hayes will be permitted supervised visitation at an approved state facility, pending compliance with court guidelines. We are adjourned." I let out a long, quiet breath, my chest rising and falling as the heavy tension that had weighed on me for months dissolved into absolute relief. Beside me, Hannah smiled brightly, shutting her leather legal binder with a sharp, satisfying snap. "We did it, Caleb," Hannah whispered, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. "It's officially over. He's yours. Legally, entirely, and permanently." "Thank you, Hannah," I said, my voice thick with emotion as I shook her hand. "For everything. I couldn't have protected him without you." "You protected him the moment you picked him up in that operating room," Hannah corrected me gently, her eyes warm. "I just handled the paperwork. I picked up 6-month-old Leo from his portable carrier beside the defense table." He let out a happy little squeal, his small chubby hands reaching up to grab the dark fabric of my suit jacket. I held him close, kissing the top of his soft head as we turned to walk down the central aisle of the courtroom. Sierra sat alone at the petitioner's table, her head bowed low. She wore a simple charcoal suit with no jewelry, looking small, drained, and completely devoid of her former arrogance. Her court-appointed attorney gathered his files in silence without looking at her. As I reached the swinging wooden doors at the back of the room, Sierra pushed herself up from her chair and rushed toward me, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. "Caleb, wait," she called out, her voice trembling with emotion. I stopped near the open doorway, turning slowly to face her while keeping Leo secured safely in my arms. Hannah stepped beside me, ready to intervene, but I raised my hand slightly to show her I had it under control. "Congratulations, Caleb," Sierra whispered, tears brimming in her hazel eyes as she looked down at Leo. "You won." "This wasn't a game to win, Sierra," I said calmly, looking her dead in the eye. "It was about giving our son the safe, stable life he deserves." "I know," she sobbed, wiping a tear away with the back of her hand. I sat there listening to the judge read the transcripts, hearing Dr. Carter's statements, and I realized how monstrous my choices looked. I was so selfish. I was so obsessed with Brandon and that fake lifestyle that I destroyed the only real thing I ever had. "You made your choices," I replied softly, my tone completely free of bitterness. "I am so sorry, Caleb," Sierra wept, reaching out a trembling hand, though she pulled it back before touching my arm. "I know sorry will never fix the birth night you had to endure alone. I know it won't give you back the trust one broke. But I am genuinely, truly sorry for what I did to you and Leo." I looked at the woman who had shattered my heart 6 months ago. The anger, the desire for payback, and the lingering pain were completely gone. All that remained was a quiet, solemn acceptance. "I accept your apology, Sierra," I said, giving her a firm, respectful nod. "I really do." Her eyes widened slightly with desperate hope. "Does that mean, maybe one day?" "It means I forgive you so I can move on with my life," I interrupted smoothly, keeping my tone steady and clear. "It doesn't mean we are ever getting back together. Follow the court's visitation schedule, stay consistent for Leo, and build a better life for yourself. That's all I ask." Sierra bit her lower lip, fresh tears spilling down her pale cheeks, but she slowly nodded in understanding. "Thank you for letting me see him at the visitation center, Caleb." "He deserves to know his mother," I said simply. "Goodbye, Sierra." I turned my back on her one last time and walked out through the grand glass doors of the courthouse into the crisp, cool Chicago afternoon air. The sky above was bright and clear, rays of golden sunlight reflecting off the surrounding glass skyscrapers. A fresh, gentle breeze swept down the street, carrying away the lingering chill of the long winter months. Leo let out a loud, adorable giggle in my arms, kicking his little feet in excitement as he pointed toward a passing blue city bus. I laughed out loud, holding him up high as the warm sunlight washed over both of us. 6 months ago, standing alone in a sterile hospital room holding a newborn baby while his mother partied across the country, I thought my life was completely ruined. I thought betrayal had broken me beyond repair. Now, looking into my son's bright, trusting blue eyes, I realized the truth. That terrible night wasn't my ending, it was my awakening. It was the moment I stopped being soft, stopped settling for conditional love, and found the fierce, unbreakable strength required to be a real father. I walked down the broad stone steps to my parked car, opened the back door, and gently buckled Leo into his rear-facing safety seat. He smiled up at me, wrapping his tiny fingers firmly around my thumb. "Ready to go home, buddy?" I asked softly, leaning down to kiss his forehead. He babbled happily in response, holding tight to my hand. I shut the car door securely, walked around to the driver's side, and got behind the wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror at my son's safe, peaceful expression, put the car in drive, and drove away toward our new future.